What have you learned from the people around you? You already know from your own studies in school that there are different kinds of knowledge, right? Knowing a math formula seems to be different from knowing a historical fact, which is somehow different from knowing how to paint or knowing how to play a musical instrument. Don't you think? You might even pause the video now to think about how you would describe those differences. So if this course is going to be about moral philosophy, moral wisdom, we'll want to keep an eye on what kind of knowledge that is. One angle on that question, on knowing what kind of knowledge moral wisdom is, can come from thinking about how you get it in the first place. I've already talked about how personal experience can play a role in moral wisdom, but that doesn't always mean that you have to learn things the hard way. A lot of what we already know about how to behave in the world, we've learned directly from other people in our lives. And so we want you to spend a little time thinking about that for yourself. Take this guy as an example. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He lived about 1900 years ago, and as an emperor, he was the supreme leader of the entire Roman Empire. At the same time, he was also a rather serious philosopher, which is part of the reason he is still a bit famous today. Over a 10-year period, and while he was mostly outside of Rome on military campaigns, he kept a journal in the hopes of doing a better job of living his life. Although he never gave those writings a name himself, it has come to be called the Meditations. The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. There's a lot of stuff in this book, and it can get pretty deep. Here's a good example of some of the really deep stuff. A lot of what troubles us in life are just worries in our own minds. At the same time, our minds are large enough to take in the entire cosmos, to think about the nature of time itself, to understand how rapidly things can change, and of how short it really is from birth to death, and how vast reality was before we were born, and of how vast reality will be after we die. See what I mean? That seems like a lot of deep stuff to me. You could pause the video right now and think about that passage for a long time. But the point of bringing up Marcus Aurelius' Meditations is the way he starts his book. The first thing he does is to take stock of the many ways that other people in his life have helped make him the person that he is. As you might expect, he starts with some close family members. From my grandfather Verus, I learned good morals and how to control my temper. From the reputation and remembrance of my father, modesty and a manly character. From my mother, piety and beneficence and abstinence, not only from evil deeds, but even from evil thoughts. And further, living my life with simplicity, rather than following the habits of rich people. He goes on for quite some time taking an inventory of this kind of thing, including some very specific things that might sound funny to us today, like thanking a friend for teaching him not to wear his outdoor clothes when he's spending time around the house. It's also clear at one point that Marcus Aurelius thinks you can learn a lot from bad examples in your life, just as much as from the good examples. That there are often people in our lives who are helping us learn what not to do because of the mistakes they've been making in their own lives. So we want you to take a little time doing for your life what Marcus Aurelius did for his. Who are some people in your life that you'd want to thank for teaching you how to be in the world? And what qualities would you want to thank them for? And you should feel free to include people you don't know personally, like famous people or people you admire from a distance. Even the fictional people that you find in the things you read or the media you watch can teach us ways we want to be in the world. So how would you start your meditations?